Atomic gigantification was a sweeping Japan nation when along came a dude with an ultra attitude, a Kamen rider who's the greatest kicker of Japan. And of all, man, life's too short now, baby, to not talk big now, baby.
My StreamYard. Oh, there we go. Okay, my StreamYard was really slow there. I don't know why. But hello everybody and welcome back to Kaiju Conversation Live, where I'm your host Elijah and we talk to somebody and we have a great conversation. We chit chat, we have a jolly good time, and yeah, we have a lot of fun. So without further ado, I don't know how I can introduce this man without not doing a great job, but he is an amazing person, a great fan, a man of knowledge, a man of awesomeness, and a man of many talents. So without further ado, let me introduce everybody to Mr. Kyle Yount.
Konnichiwa. Hello. And thanks for having me, Elijah.
And my StreamYard's breaking. 1 second.
Oh, no worries, man.
Am I there?
You seem good to me, but
StreamYard was working and then it stopped working.
I'm going to raise my hand and wiggle my fingers to see if I see it working on YouTube right now.
What is... Let's see.
Oh, yeah. It's working on YouTube at least. I just wiggled my fingers on YouTube. Watching live right now. Throw a comment up into
I still can't hear Kyle,
chat.
but I know he's talking.
Oh, man. That's no good. What's up, Eric?
Okay, let me see something.
What's up, Michael? I see some monsters with attitude have some free time on a Sunday. That's awesome.
I apologize for the technical inconveniences. I don't know why StreamYard's being just not the coolest.
I don't know either, man. StreamYard's usually so cool and chill with us. What's up, Kim? And also Rex. I'll say hi to Rex. I don't know you. Do I know you, Rex Zeno? Rex Zeno. That sounds like a hell of a name.
So maybe, is it Kyle, are you muted?
No, I don't think so. Everybody seems to be able to
okay.
hear me just
fine. I can read lips
fine.
somewhat. It says you're not muted.
Right. I'm okay. And I can hear, I can hear you just fine, Elijah.
This is what I'll do. If I can do it. What's StreamYard doing?
Okay. Well, welcome to the show. As you can see, I've completely taken over Kaiju Conversation. My power is limitless, and I hope you're here along for the ride because we are going to rule the world, my friends, with Kaiju. I'm sure Elijah's going to be back in just a moment, but why don't I just go ahead and say, hey, what's up to everybody? I'm glad to be here. Yes, it's a Kyle takeover, Eric, apparently. It's all good. I mean, that's the deal. Yeah, Rex. Elijah couldn't hear me, even though we were able to hear him and see him just fine. So what I'm assuming / hoping is that he pops back in here, in a relatively short amount of time. Otherwise, it's going to be the Kyle show. Anyway, live from somebody's basement, it's Kaiju Conversation. So I'm not in my basement. I'm in my very empty studio. But don't let that stop you from hanging out with me, because you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and start things off. And since I don't have a conversation to join, I will take over for a split second. And we got, it looks like at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 people watching live. I'm just counting the comments. So I guess I'll just say, for the people watching live, have you seen the Gamera series, the anime series? And if you have seen the Gamera anime series, would you give it what score would you give it out of 5? 1 through 5, 1 being terrible, 5 being fantastic. What would you say? Also, I'm going to go ahead and answer Michael Hamilton's question about how's the move coming along. Move is actually coming along pretty well. This is the collection room, studio, office is pretty much boxed up. We're probably need to spend a few more hours on it before it's all completely boxed up and gone. But down in the garage, holy moly, all my toys are in boxes, and it's kind of sad. I think, honestly, I would love to welcome Elijah Thomas back to the screen. Can you hear me now? No? Maybe? I can hear you. No, it's not your mic. Your microphone is okay. Here, I'm going to throw you a chat. Get my keyboard here.
I think StreamYard hates me. I still can't hear anything.
Oh, yeah. That sucks. That sucks because everything else seems normal.
And it was working before.
I know, right? Totally. Kim is asking you, oh, you can't hear me, but Kim is asking if the tab muted. Is the tab muted again? Let me just do this. Do an old copy paste into the private chat from
No,
Kim.
Nothing's muted. Everything's working.
Well, that didn't work. Hey, what's up, Helmy? How's it going, man? Whatever's happening, it's all good. There's no big deal. Well, everybody's predicting Elijah Hulk out soon, so bonus recording flashbacks, says Rex. What up? You know, this is just how life is. Sometimes it throws you lemons and you get really unfortunate results. But hey, 8 minutes and 50 seconds of dynamite content for your channel, at least. I am only kidding. I know this is not ideal, and if you want to get it fixed, that way you can hear me. If Elijah wants to get it fixed, we can do it again. Or thankfully, YouTube has those edit functions. You can actually just say, edit all the first 10 minutes out of this, if that happens. Anyway, I'm back on screen once more, taking over. Drinking my highly alcoholic water. And there's Elijah. I guess I'm going to look for a message from Elijah telling me what's up. But, I saw Rex give Gamera Rebirth like a 6-ish, saying it's okay. Oh, Rex was the only one who's seen it here. That's really disappointing. Really disappointed in you, Greg Coggin, Eric Stolp, Kaiju Kim, Michael Hamilton, Helmy. Just kidding. Oh, yeah, this is a great glass, Helmy. I'm sorry I can't throw your comments up on screen. I don't actually have the power here. It's just how it is. These glasses were on my keep list. All the Super 7 glasses, because they're just so cool. But I think I'm probably going to give them to somebody in Portland. Thank you, Kim. You know what? That's about what I would give it. 7 out of 10. I thought it was so good. I know you've seen it, Eric. I was just messing around. There we go. More scores for Gamera. Don't forget, I was the curator of the Shrine of Gamera for many years before some Asian company bought it out for me. The domain, specifically. But the worst part about that is they bought the domain, right? And then they replicated my website. So the shrineofgamera.com works, but the links on it are sus. Like they changed the links in my HTML. Totally rude stuff. Rude dudes who take over domain names. I'm not a fan of them. So, yeah. Throw me a topic, ladies and gentlemen. Also, did I see Mazer Patrol in here? Is that Kevin? Anyway. Yeah. How's everybody's Sunday? My Sunday was going pretty good. I'm going to joke around now. My Sunday was going great until this stream. Anyway. Okay. Can you hear me?
We're back. I can hear you. I can hear everything.
Sweet. So you only need to trim 11 minutes and 44 seconds from this video once it's on YouTube.
Good to know. Good to know. I had to like reboot everything. So
that sucks. Well, I did my best to keep everybody entertained.
So yeah, we're back. So you were talking about glasses, I saw, and
yes, good old Super 7 in their guts glasses.
So Super 7 did that Dark Horse Godzilla figure, and that thing is beautiful. Do you have that?
I don't have that. I only have a couple of the Super 7 pieces, mostly the reactions, because at this point, I'm trying not to buy anything large, and those are a really great size, those little reaction figures. I got the Rodan from San Diego Comic-Con and the glow-in-the-dark Ghidra, which is not the Shogun Warrior style, obviously, but just the regular reaction. Good stuff, though.
So it's funny you bring up that you're getting the small stuff, because there's a reason for that. And I saw in the chat we've been talking a little bit about it. Your big move, living the kaiju fan dream, I guess.
Yeah. You know, the kaiju fan dream, the weeb dream, I don't know why I'm putting myself through this much stress dream. Just kidding. I'm super excited to live in Japan, and it's as Helmy's saying, it is a go big or go home moment for me. I gotta definitely, it's probably the largest single thing that I've done, and I'm not doing it by myself. Obviously, I got a lovely wife who's helping me out with stuff, but yeah, it's a lot of stuff to do. But the big move, it's happening, and that's why I'm getting small stuff only, pretty much. Like, yeah. So someday it'll get shipped over there, and then I'll have it back in my possession, and then I'll have a lovely backdrop filled with toys and movie posters.
That's awesome. So it's funny, and I love the fact this is all lined up, and I won't say too much yet publicly, just because it's still very up in the air, but there might be some odds of me being in Japan in the near future. So
Congrats.
Thank you. It's kind of crazy because, it's like I've seen Japan only in movies. So it's like going and being.
Oh, you haven't even visited?
I haven't visited yet.
Oh,
so this would be like just go all in. Like there's no like visiting, no like looking around. Like this is just go.
Yeah, that's a pretty big commitment. I mean, just out of curiosity, how do you feel about Japanese culture?
So I'm not gonna claim to be very knowledgeable about it yet. But like I've been trying to dive into it a little bit. I mean, like for the last year, and this is kind of so far the depth of it because of my busy schedule, but I haven't really watched anything outside of Japanese films. I've just been watching Japanese content for the last year or so. Just that's all I filled my time with. And I've done a little bit of research, a little bit of writing and whatnot, and reading some more. I have a long ways to go before I'll be knowledgeable. But
yeah. Well, I was just kind of curious because that's sort of like the cultural, how do I say this? The cultural like pastiche that is Japan is obviously very old, and there's a lot of weird cultural things that people in America don't always don't always get. I'm not actually lumping you in with people like that. I'm just saying that
Right.
like if you've never been over there, I'm assuming that you don't have a lot of experience directly interfacing with Japanese people. And that's I guess what I was kind of curious about in terms of the cultures. Like the kaiju movies are awesome. I love Japanese cinema. I love Japanese pop culture, but like that's like just one facet to the whole aspect that is like stuff why I love Japan.
Right.
And I could talk all about that too, but whatever you want to talk about, I'm into. Do you want to? Can I ask you a question about your opportunity? Is that?
Yeah, go for it. I'll answer.
Is it a teaching gig?
No, it would be a little more in lines with some other things that I want to do, like where I want my career to go. So that's
awesome.
Yeah, it's been kind of a like surprise moment. This all kind of happened quickly, so it would be more in lines with my career goals. And for the people who do know, they can kind of figure out what that kind of means. But there would be cameras involved. I'll just say that there would be cameras involved. So it's been one of those things where with that I've been like, okay, I need to like rush into learning and like learn Japanese culture, learn when you logged on here, I saw the katakana, or no, it's not katakana, hiragana. And I was like, wait, no, it is katakana. It's katakana. And I was like, okay, kairu. And I was like, oh, that's your and I was like, I told you, I was like, I love that because, katakana is for foreign words. So like the name Kyle would be written in katakana and all that. It was like, that's, little things like that's kind of been where I've started.
Cool, man. Yeah, I suck at reading. In fact, my Japanese level is conversational with a kaiju fan at best. Like I can communicate a little bit with like my coworkers that don't speak English, but it's like I have no excuse for speaking as little Japanese as I do for the amount of time I've been studying Japanese. But yeah, reading. I am literally just getting started with an app on my iPad called Learn Hiragana because I don't know any of it. And like I've been very bad about actually continuing my studies on it. I just got so much to do, man. It's crazy.
I get that. I just hit, I think actually today. Today is my third week in a row where every day I've studied, and it varies. Like it'll be like 20 minutes to like I think I've done up to 3 hours. And I do that all with Rex, my co-host. We call each night and we learn Japanese together.
Oh, that's cool.
So
that's
cool. We got Japanese. We have Japanese study sessions. And Kim
Konbanwa, Kim. Konbanwa.
There we go.
I went to a school in Japan, like a high school, and they do sports stuff. Actually, it might have been college. And when all the kids ran up to us, like when we got there, it was the afternoon, and they said ran up and they'd like just like almost like in a line, chua, and they would leave, chua, and they'd leave, and chua, and they leave. I was like, okay. And then they came up later. When they were coming up later, they said "mbama" and left. And I was like, oh my God, they are shortening konnichiwa and konbanwa into like this rapid fire word. Really threw me off. I was like, what are they saying? Yeah. Really interesting language. And I honestly, I can only hope that I will be able to just get by enough for the first few years of me living there. And then I really hope that I can actually like find somebody to be like a study partner over there. But the immersion is what I feel like I need because I just have too many English language distractions around me right now.
I know that feeling. And I want to say it's Kevin Derendorf. I want to say on the Mazer Patrol. There's kanji in that, and I don't know anything about kanji yet. that's like there's like 50,000 kanji
Japanese
characters. I can't do. I haven't even started kanji yet. I'm a hiragana katakana dude. And then we got Helmi saying, my friend studied Japanese for 3 years and couldn't understand the kombi person asking if he wants a plastic bag with his purchase.
It's really different. I mean, literally, I've seen so many people say you can study as much as you want, you can learn as much as you want, but until you put it into practice in real life, it's just gonna be knowledge. And like, to me, that's like the perfect. That's the reason I'm moving to Japan. No, that's the reason I haven't been focusing so much on learning the language, even though I am actually fascinated. I should have been. I have like these moments today where I'm like, oh man, I really should have just been trying to learn this language when I was a lot younger. Because now I'm 50, and I'm sure I'm going to need to take like ginkgo biloba or something like that to expand my mind in order to like really, really grasp these concepts. Like counting in Japanese, boy, oh boy, that's something I'm like mildly terrified about, just because there's so many different ways to do it. But yeah,
Right.
I'm hoping that I can actually learn not the language, but be fluent enough that I can have conversations with people.
Right.
I know too many gaijin that live over there that rely on their significant other. And I just don't want to be that way. I mean, I can't be that way. My significant other is American as well, so.
But that's what the good old attempt is for. Just going and saying, let's do this, and doing it, right? That's what
Yeah,
you gotta do.
essentially. Basically, my boss, I've told the story many times, but basically, my boss during the pandemic knew that I wanted to move to Japan, and I got moved to remote status, and he was like, hey, that means you can work anywhere in the world, even Japan. And I was like, that is awesome. So we've been working on that basically since 2021.
That's awesome. Well,
Here we
that's really cool. That's really cool, because stuff like that, like what's funny is just earlier this year I was on the phone with one of my friends, and I was like, we need to go to Japan. We need to go take a trip to Japan. And then, a few months later I was told, well, if you want to come, like, let me know. We'll start setting it up. And I was like, wait a minute. I was
That's
just
cool,
planning
though.
a trip to Japan, but no, it's
So wait, how old are you?
19.
19, dude. Go. GTFO this country and go over there. Like, seriously, it's gonna it's gonna change your life, and B, you're so young that it will you have plenty of time to be over there and experience the adventure if you go there when you're 20, I'll say.
Right.
And then B, just the fact that you're being potentially given an opportunity, that's not so common for Japan.
Right.
It's you can find your way and stuff like that, but like, I thankfully have a company that has a Japanese branch. Otherwise, I would have had to go a way different route to get my visa.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things where I think I won't have a definite answer until it's going to be a long process, but July of next year is when I'll find my answer. Not find, but I'll get my answer. And then it'll probably be in the coming months where it's like, okay, time to make it happen. So like,
Cool, man.
It could very well be like a year from today would be like the moving process.
So still living at home, I assume?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's probably for the best in this situation, to be perfectly honest.
So it's been one of those things where it's like, I gotta, I've been learning Japanese, and after this month ends, I'm going to start diving into more, just kind of learning and immersing myself, more so than I already do. And just, watching stuff and reading stuff. And once I'm working on a project right now that's kind of taking my funds that I could spend on like books and whatnot to read and research and learn.
Books. Pfft. Money on books. Sorry, any authors in the audience, but yeah, I mean, there are so many free like options out there for studying Japanese. I would probably end up buying a workbook for the written stuff, but like that's about. I'm not a book learning guy. That's not exactly true. I'm notorious for being a terrible reader. Like I can totally read, but I just don't. Like when I read, it's like, oh, do I need to go to sleep? Because this will put me to sleep immediately reading. I know that that's like an oversimplification, because I know there's tons of like fantastic authors out there who've done fantastic work, and I have a butt ton of books down here that I have actually read or at least thumbed through. But yeah, like to me, reading a book about Japan is like good to read, but like it's not going to help me learn Japanese the way that like conversating is really the best way to do it. And it's like when I go to Japan, because I've been a bunch of times, right? When I go to Japan, I get there and I'm like, sumimasen, konnichiwa, and I'm like, forget it all, and I have to like sit there and be in it for a while, like maybe a couple days before it just comes flowing back to me. And like by the end of my trip, I'm usually like right back to where I was in my last time I was studying, basically. Anyway.
No, that's actually really interesting, because that's been I have a friend at work who also is coincidentally trying to learn Japanese right now. So like we'll take our lunch breaks together, we'll chit chat, we'll talk, we'll do a little bit of studying. And I've told him, it's like once I get to a point where like I understand what I'm doing, I'm gonna start like my notebook. I would like to get to a point where I'm writing in Japanese.
Oh wow.
And not in English, just so I can have that constant like practice, and then being able to read that, and just kind of like immersing yourself, trying to get in that mindset, in that understanding. And I've heard like typically to learn fluent Japanese, it takes like 3 years of hard, dedicated work.
I've heard a lot of different like theories like that. Yeah, like one gal, and not like by teachers, by just people living in Japan. Like one gal, I was watching the video, and she said that for the first 3 years she was there, she did almost nothing but listen. Didn't even really try and speak, because she was just getting the flow and the way they formulate their phrases in Japanese, and like just trying to understand that. I was like, wow, that takes guts. I think for me, I'm looking forward to trying to do that thing where you learn like the 2,000 most common words in Japanese, and then of course I want to be able to read street signs and other signs. That to me
know where
is
you're
like,
going.
that's they know where I'm going. I mean, granted, there's English everywhere in Japan, and especially if you're in Tokyo. I don't know where you might potentially end up, but yeah, if you have like if you're in the Tokyo area or one of the major cities, there's English everywhere. I can get by. People that were on my last trip got to see how easy it was to get around Tokyo without knowing any Japanese. But yeah, it's helpful to be able to say, oh, that's a ramen shop, or that's an udon shop, or that's a soba shop. It's not like they might all look like they just serve soup, but they all have everything's got like different specialties, and I love the food over there. So that is actually a pretty apt example. Like I want to be able to identify the places I want to go eat and stuff like that. I'm hoping that I can do Japanese well. Jozu desu. We'll say another thing somebody has suggested is a study partner. Like if you can find a Japanese guy who wants to learn English, you could be the English to his Japanese. You know what I mean? Like, and basically you could help him learn English and he can help you learn Japanese. And that's sort of what I've heard preached as a good angle on that.
That's actually a really good idea.
And
really
actually, I thought a long time ago, oh, the way to get me to learn Japanese is for me to get like a Japanese teacher, like a lady, because I'm going to want to like naturally impress a lady. But no, apparently Japanese women speak differently than Japanese men, and you shouldn't learn Japanese from a woman if you want to speak like a Japanese man. I see Kevin's suggesting manga with Furigana. That's cool. Yeah. That is actually, that's a good point here. What he's making is one of the things I've heard is like, don't use, and he's saying manga, but like, don't use like a lot of different anime, especially if they're like fantasy anime, to try and learn Japanese, because they're making up like a quarter of the words. And so I have like a list of 2 or 3 anime shows that I'm supposed to be watching that are just very normal, everyday conversation kind of stuff. And one of them is about Polar Bear Cafe, I think, something like that. And it's like polar bears that run a cafe, and there's animal. It's on Crunchyroll. Anyway, normal conversation, normal words as opposed to fantasy words and sci-fi words.
And I've heard, even like I've been told, don't watch movies and expect to like hear that, because the way they speak in movies is it's dramatic. It's a little different from
anything that's like on TV that doesn't seem, I hate to say it this way, it doesn't seem boring. Japanese is very monosyllabic, very, very quick, very short, and very exact, right? Like, so the phrasing that you use, the word for the character, whatever you say there, right? Like, so like if you're reading it in the Romanji, which for people watching is like the English language version of the Japanese word. So itadakimasu would be like ITD, whatever. You just read it like syllables. Itadakimasu. And then you got to know stuff like that last U is off, like silent almost. And some of the other things might be silent every once in a while. But if you read the characters just like they're written in Romanji, you probably are going to do better in your pronunciation for words that you've never seen before, right? Like, it's, I don't even know why I brought this up, but basically that's another thing that like I had to learn, like how you have to learn to look at these words when they're written in English. At least you have to learn how to read them in Japanese as opposed to in American, right? Because like the name Abe, right? Shinzo Abe, the prime minister, ex-prime minister who got assassinated last year, he was, or this year, whatever it was, that's Abe in American, you know? So that's just one of those things. Like, I think a lot of English, like American people, not saying you, but like people don't really know when they start looking at the Japanese or looking at that Romanji. It's just kind of interesting I wish I had known that back in the day.
Right. And like, even to that, so I was trying to, I did a little bit of dialect and accent coaching back a couple of years ago. And for like the way you talk in more of a British accent, it was kind of interesting because like you would say E as an eh, like a more of like an A instead of an E sound for the letter E in a British accent. And that's kind of what you do for talking in Japanese with the E, is more of an A sound.
Yeah. E, U, E, yeah.
And vowels are everything. Like, vowels are what basically make that entire, like, how you pronounce everything, which I learned kind of something similar to that. We did vowel like exercises to learn how to be a little more articulate with how you spoke. So it's weird how like learning about that in theater and whatnot, and having that coaching kind of helped me latch on to how you speak in Japanese a little bit easier than not.
Yeah, my best feature of Japanese is I'm really good at imitating people. So like inflection and stuff like that. So when I hear it, I get complimented on my pronunciation and stuff like that.
So, you know, we've been talking about Japanese just culture and the language and whatnot. So what made you, because I'm going to assume here, and if I'm wrong, please like tell me I'm wrong.
Sure.
I'm going to assume that you started with anime and kaiju films, and that's kind of where it came from. And it looks like I'm either right or wrong.
Just kaiju films, really.
Just kaiju? Okay.
Yeah, like I said this the other day. I can't remember if it was on the stream or not, but basically, I'm 50, so I was born in 73. And while legitimately the term anime was created to describe like Osamu Tezuka's work, in America, no one called Speed Racer, Astro Boy, Transor Z, and Voltron. Nobody called that anime until like the 90s or something like that, until I wasn't paying attention. So yeah, I was a kaiju tokusatsu kid. Like I looked, but I mean, it was only what was like available on TV. So I only watched like Space Giants and Spectreman until I was like living in Japan as a teenager and saw my first Godzilla movie.
Okay. So would you say that watching that stuff kind of helped you grow to want to learn about the Japanese culture? And
for sure, less from when I was a kid,
okay,
and more as a young adult, because my knowledge of those shows was just episodic, like what I caught when I was, and I'm not kidding, like I was in first grade drawing the two-headed rat bat monster from Spectreman. So it was on when I was very young, and I didn't see it later. So I wasn't like a huge kaiju fan. I just liked monsters and dinosaurs. Dinosaurs is bold there. And then yeah, when we moved to Japan, we did that for my dad's work, and so that was sort of like I was already over there, and I saw my first Godzilla movie while I was there.
Okay, that's awesome. I can't wait to maybe one day watch a Godzilla movie in Japan. That just feels so right.
It's pretty good, I have to say.
So, how long were you initially in Japan?
Well, we were originally supposed to be there for 3 years, but it was in the peak of the Japanese economy. And so basically, the company was like, oh, it's too expensive to have all these gaijin over here. So they moved us to Hong Kong for the remaining 2 years, which was a fantastic like opportunity. I loved Hong Kong, but I really do think that that's where I got my taste of Japan. And then I didn't even go back. And that was like when I was 13. I didn't go back until I was probably 37 when I went back for work. And then I sort of started doing my own research and realized I could go back more than just like for work at that time. But yeah, that was, when I lived there, got me the bug. And like when I started watching giant Japanese monster movies and as a teenager, it definitely continued that fascination. And like, I really, that ramped up when I was in college too, right? So like watching those movies when I was in college and even older, I think maybe I was like, oh, I recognize some of this stuff from when I lived over there. And it definitely wanted me, like I've learned a lot from the movies outside of just the giant monster stuff, culturally speaking.
Okay, interesting. Because, I mean, that's, for me, like, in the last about 2 years, I've branched out from just the kaiju movies. Like, the deep tokusatsu bug, like, bit me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, like, I started, Ultraman, and then I started watching, like, Toei shows, Kikaida and whatnot, and I started watching any like live action science fiction or horror movie I could get my hands on.
Yeah.
And I've got some deep cuts now, like for me it's not obscure, but like what would be an obscure one? See, I automatically
prepare for judging, Elijah. I'm ready for your obscure reference here.
Okay, so how about this? We'll talk. So, like, this is not a good movie. This is not a good movie by any means. But the 2009 parody film "Sexy Rangers."
I actually have not seen that one. I have not. I haven't delved into those. What is that? Oh my gosh, what is that guy's name? There's like one guy who does a whole bunch of like indie kaiju stuff, and like I feel like he was involved in that one.
I want to say
If Kevin's watching, he knows who I'm talking about. Guy who did the Monster Sushi movie. And,
Minoru.
yeah, Kawasaki. Yeah.
It's not
Is that who
him.
did that?
I believe this was Shinji Nishikawa. He was an artist, and that was his only film he directed. Yeah, I was right. Shinji Nishikawa. Okay. Kevin,
okay, cool. Yeah,
correct.
I've never seen that one.
And then Michael said, "Don't knock it till you've watched it." I've made Michael watch it, so that's why he says it.
Excellent.
So like I started like watching anything. And now it's getting to the point where like I have this master list of like all the Japanese special effects, like science fiction fantasy films that are like have subtitles and whatnot. So now it's like, okay, now that I'm about done with that, I'm down to my last like 90 titles. I'm going to start like horror. I'm going to start watching Japanese horror stuff, which is probably going to add another 200 titles to my list.
Nice.
But like that was kind of how I started getting into the culture, and now like I'm trying to learn Japanese, and then I'll start, doing more research into the culture. And like one thing I remember reading was like, you don't tip. It's not,
True.
It's not a typical thing to tip, and
they don't have
tipping,
a tipping culture there.
And tipping's kind of frowned upon because it's like you should be paid more to do better. That's kind of how it was explained to me. I could be wrong.
Yeah, essentially, I think that's sort of the mentality. If your country doesn't have a tipping culture, you're just expected to get paid for the job you do. And I think that's sort of the concept there in Japan, is that they just don't have that tipping culture. So if you leave money for them, they'll run after you to tell you that you left money on the table. Yeah, I love that about Japan. Really, it's a what you see is what you get kind of situation, except for the tax. But yeah, if you can calculate that in, you were good anyway. But yeah, they don't have a tipping culture. There's all sorts of weird things about Japan. They have this whole thing. This is actually very not in line with me as a sort of counterculture guy. They have this saying about like the nail that sticks out gets hit back in, and like individuality in Japan is not as celebrated as it is here in America. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff about Japan that's like really interesting. About like the tattoo culture, or what I should say is like the anti-tattoo culture over there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like there's tons of stuff I'm gonna be ready to deal with while I'm over there.
But see, all of that's, I don't know. For me, it's like I love that. Like that's the idea of a whole new culture and like getting.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Actually, that's one of the things I say is like I've been living in this culture in America for so long. It's just not like I'm not like, oh, I'm sick of it, but I have seen American culture for like the past 30 years pretty flamboyantly displayed in front of me. So I'm fine to like just move on. And like I've loved my time here in America, but I'm just ready for this next run, this next adventure. Right. It's going to be fantastic. And I'm happy that everything has been moving towards where I am going anyway. So I'm just like stoked about it. Like we're hopefully going to be there for at least 5 years, hopefully longer. Yeah, it's definitely, it's not something that should be done lightly unless you're young and then you just go do it. Right. Like I'm not joking around. Like my kid is 25 years old and I'm not telling him to move to Japan, but I'm like, dude, get out of Portland. Just like go do something, go find some adventure, go like you don't lock yourself into where you're from. Not again, I'm talking about kid here, but like I want him to go out and find some good adventures out in the world.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up because I've said something like that because for a specific reason I was doing some research on like Rue Kitamura lately. And like one of his things is one day he just said, I'm moving out of Japan to learn filmmaking. And like that's what he did. He
Yeah.
went at like 17 to Australia, got into a film school, learned how to do film, and then went back to Japan and then started making movies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, you know, that's in a way I feel like that's kind of where I'm going. Except it's the opposite. I'm going to Japan to learn, and then I, you know, eventually probably would find my way back to America. But it's just like, you know, just in a way it's like do it, you know, don't.
I think if you have an opportunity, let's say, actually, let me just use my wife as an example here. When my boss told me that I could work anywhere, even Japan, and those like literally were the words he used. So I came back home and told her that, and her reaction, instead of, wow, that sounds like a really cool thing for us to do when we retire, or maybe we should like start doing some research on what to do. Her response was just like, what are we waiting for? Like, why would we wait? Let's do it now. Do it while we're young. And I mean, I'm young enough that I can go adventure in Japan and do pretty much anything. I'm not like super stoked about mountain climbing, but you know, I'll go up a mountain every once in a while, especially if there's stairs, you know. Mount a cow, I did that once. But yeah, I think that if an opportunity is presented to you and you don't take it, and you love this stuff, right? Like, first up, those opportunities are rare. Secondly, if they come up, they might not always be great deals. But if you have that opportunity and you're young enough to take advantage of it, I would say just roll with it, right? Like, you're young, you're easy, you know, you're probably a lot easier to deal with than like someone who's like my age. So I'd say it's a win-win from my perspective, dude.
First of all, that's the perfect response. I would love it if, you know, if my significant other or something would be like, do it. Like, what do we like? That's the perfect response.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then you said I was going to touch on something you said because I thought that was really good. Let me think here. But no, it's, you know, what was it? It was something really good. It was
I say too much.
You brought up that you weren't so excited about mountain climbing per se. Now,
sure.
when I was on the phone with my friend a couple months ago, we brought up that there's like bucket list things that like we have to do. You've been to Japan a decent amount of times.
I would say more than my share, yes.
What would you? Is there anything left on that bucket list for you?
Oh my God, yeah, dude. First up, there's too much to do in Tokyo alone. If you're like, I have 2 weeks to go to Japan, you literally could spend it in Tokyo and not get bored. Like, there'd be too much stuff to do. So Japan is filled with that kind of stuff. So if you're asking about bucket list kind of stuff, we are basically going to get a map of Japan, like a prefectural map. With prefectures are like the states in Japan. And so we're going to try and visit every single prefecture. That's our goal, is like, we are going there to experience Japan and travel. I'm not going there. It's going to sound hypocritical. I'm not going there just to see Godzilla. Like, I'm going there to really like adventure over there, right? Then if Godzilla's around, of course I'm going to be all about it. But yeah, for me, like traveling to different areas of Japan has always been a huge thing for me. Like, I spend most of my time in Tokyo because when I go to Japan, a lot of times it's with other people and they need to see Tokyo. But for me, I'm ready. I'm going to be living near Tokyo, so I'm ready to be going out to like Akita Prefecture, way down to Kyushu. Gotta go experience some cool onsen, and yeah, like all the cultural stuff is what we're gonna be really, really gung ho for while we're over there.
That's awesome. And you know, that's a whole nother thing. Like, there's so much like to learn. Like, just, you know, the stories, the history, the culture, everything. It's just there's so much, and it's so like it's a rich country full of just this
Without a doubt.
awesome stuff. And I'm sure there's no way I could in my lifetime figure out and learn all of that, but I would love to at least know a decent amount to
Get in what
love.
you can, right?
So that's really cool. That's actually a really good idea, the whole prefecture thing. I might have
We
to, I might
didn't
have
we
to
didn't make that up. We definitely stole that from somebody else's idea. They getting a prefecture map and just putting like pins on it. But I mean that's sort of the, if you go over there, what you're going to find is that prefectures have specialties. They're like, this is the dish we make. These are some of the like cultural wow spots that we have. And like, you know, going like Kyoto, Osaka, and Tokyo are the big three cities, right? Kyoto is like hugely cultural. You can go there. It's like do nothing but culture stuff for like a full 2 weeks as well. You know, Osaka, definitely like drinking business culture. And then you've got Tokyo, which is just kind of just everything's going on all the time there. But everything outside of those, like that's what we're really looking forward to, like getting into those weeds, essentially trying to find cool things to do that we haven't done in a different prefecture, and like really just hitting every place we can.
That's see, now you're getting me excited again. Now I'm gonna have
you
to
should be
like,
excited.
I'm gonna go home and I'm just gonna be like, what to do in Japan, learning about prefectures and all that. You're gonna make me.
So, well, let's do this. Let's real quick exercise. What do you know what area you'd be living in if you went over there?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
We haven't been able to discuss that yet. We're still in it's still kind of early stages.
Okay.
I want to say it's close to Tokyo. I want to say it's
Okay.
semi close to Tokyo.
So, in Tokyo, by just default, you have everything from like the Tokyo Tower to the Tokyo Sky Tree to the Godzilla Hotel to like everything. I mean, geez, everything's in Tokyo. You've got the Shibuya Scramble Square, the Hachiko statue, the Odaiba, the Imperial Palace. Like, there's so much stuff in Tokyo, but outside of Tokyo, every single one of those prefectures has awesome stuff. There are castles, there are huge crazy gardens, there are temples out the wazoo, and I'm sure at some point in my life I'm gonna get sick of visually seeing temples, but I don't know when that's gonna be because I went. So there's a temple mountain in Kyoto called Fushimi Inari. If you ever see it online, it's the one with like thousands of the red torii gates everywhere lining the paths and stuff like that. We had to get up at like 6 a.m. to get there when nobody was around, but it is absolutely stunning. And like David and Keith and I were there for probably about 4 hours going up the mountain and then back down. And it's just really, really awesome. I love all of the little things, even though you're seeing sort of the same thing over and over again. You're seeing red torii gates, stone fox statues, graves, and stuff like that. It's like the slight variations on it. I just love it.
Well, see, and that's so like one of the things that so like I did some schooling in like graphic design and multimedia design and whatnot. And of course, like film is what I love. So like watching and looking at graphic design and films for Japanese stuff, and then also on top of that looking at how their buildings are made and how everything's designed. It's so different, but it's beautiful. Like it's very elegant. And what you brought up about like the slight variations and whatnot, like there's meaning behind that. Like when they do that stuff, there's always like stuff behind that, and it's a very thoughtful culture. Like everything, there's thought, and it's like you said, it's very exact. When you speak, it's very like to the point. Like there's not like very much variation on what it could be. It's all about the context and whatnot. But like everything is so like exact and elegant. And that's like part of the beauty of that culture is just the elegance and how careful everything is done. Like everything's
It's specifically like if you want to like talk about those types of things, like absolutely you're on the money with like tea ceremonies. Where have you ever been to one of those? It's like
I have not.
It is an entire ceremony that involves a lot of quiet sitting and thoughtful manipulation of tea in a pot going into a cup and being presented to you. It's like really crazy in a sense, not in a bad way, but just so different than anything that we do here. And it's one of those moments where you're like, okay, you got to pull back on your American sensibilities and just live in the moment, maybe meditate, and just experience what you're being presented with, which was really interesting to do. Like I would actually suggest everybody who goes to Japan should at least try something like that, whether it's a tea ceremony or sitting in a Japanese garden or like some sort of like cultural activity that just gets you to stop and like absorb.
I definitely need something like that. I'm always moving. That would be like such a change, but that would be probably really good to do.
Yeah, change. That's like I'm looking forward to quite a lot of change when I get over to Japan. I talked to my wife about things like if I come across a Tai Chi group in the park in the morning, I want to join that group. Like I want to do Tai Chi in the park. When I moved to Japan when I was a kid, we had a park on the street below where we lived, and I was fascinated by the group of like 8 older people that were like doing Tai Chi every morning, and I'm like super down for it. So count me in, Japan.
I love that. Well, we are getting a little close to the allotted time, so I don't want to keep you too long, but
no problem.
Hearing you talk about Japan was so interesting. I'm sure you could go for a long time just spewing about Japan and whatnot. Yeah. So
you can't shut me up generally. So yeah, you're totally right about that.
I'm kind of so my goal here was kind of to not talk so much about the kaiju and more just the conversation and talk about your big life event here. And honestly, like hearing you talk about it, like I can feel the excitement through the screen. Man.
That's good. I'm glad that my exuberance is actually like infectious enough to reach through the internet.
So it's like it's a power like Sadako's, but it's not going to kill me in 7 years.
It's just 7 years.
But
well, yeah, dude, I wish I hope that opportunity finishes formulating and that it becomes a real deal and you get to go over there, man, because I think that I mean, it's not a regret that I didn't go over when I was younger. My life just did not like align itself to me visiting Japan as a 20 or early 30-year-old. So I don't care because I'm going and I'm happy with where I'm at. But yeah, for you, man, and anybody else watching that has an opportunity like that, I'd say even if you have like a teaching gig opportunity, those can still be very cool adventures. So if you're young enough to take advantage of it, I would just do it, man.
Well, see, that's a good note to end on. So before we officially wrap things up here, for anybody who doesn't know who you are, why don't you go ahead and link what you do?
Well, I used to run the Kaiju Cast, which was a podcast that ran from 2009 to 2019, but I kind of kiboshed it and said I'm moving to a different project, and now we do Collect All Monsters, which is a monthly program on YouTube all about the collectible side of the kaiju genre. And myself, plus my 4 co-hosts, have a ton of fun every month on the show and also in between shows on our Facebook group, the Collect All Monsters, Monster Collectors. So yeah, check us out. Onegaishimasu.
Awesome. And Kaiju Cast is such a that's such a big project for a lot of kaiju podcasts. We strive to maybe one day do as well as you have done. So
well, thank you for saying that. I can't even unpack that. There's too much to say there. Thank you.
As for me, hi. I'm Elijah. I totally didn't ruin the beginning of this with StreamYard being StreamYard for 11 minutes and 52 seconds.
StreamYard! Yeah.
You can find me on Twitter at ET13_productions if you want to catch up with updates on my projects I'm working on. You can also find my YouTube channel, ET13 Productions, where I'm posting my short films. More should be coming down the line. I'm just waiting on some stuff, some assets, and then I'm working on a project that hopefully will be out very soon. Outside of that, if you want to support the podcast, you can listen to us on any podcast platform under Kaiju Conversation. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Twitter, the artist formerly known X, formerly the artist known as Twitter. At Kaiju_Converse. You can also hit the bell and subscribe to Kaiju Conversation on YouTube if you want to enjoy less buggy StreamYard streams where I chat with somebody once a month, and this month I got to have the privilege with Mr. Kyle Younce. So thank you, Kyle, so much. This was great.
Thank you, Elijah. This was fun, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I'm happy to hear it was fun. I'm happy. Thank you. And with that, we're going to wrap things up here. So all I have left to say is thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Kyle. And as always, please remember, life's too short to not talk big. Bye, guys.
Laters. Oh, wait. Jamata.